Good morning, Claire, and oh, goodness me, I'm having a few technical issues. Good morning, Claire and Rachel, and Claire's iPad, and Nikki. It's lovely to see you here this morning, and I'm really excited to be introducing um, Claire and Rachel, who are the facilitators of the TAE course, which is a course for those parents and other caregivers or teachers who are supporting those bright students that just aren't doing well at school. And we're here today. Claire is going to be giving us a bit of a taster of some of the things, practical things that you get to learn on this course. And as I've said in several times ad nauseum, this modality, Davis Dyslexia, gave me a second chance, really. It's not that I wasn't successful before I did it, but it has made my life a whole lot easier. And that is why I'm so passionate about sending it out into the world. So over to you, Rachel and Claire, and welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Carly. Really appreciate you having us on your platform again today. And we thought rather than this be kind of a talking heads thing, we will talk a little bit, but that for a lot of people, understanding some of the key aspects of Davis is probably best done through a demonstration. So Claire has kindly organised to actually show how we use plastilina clay to model words to help dyslexic learners learn those words and be able to retain them and use them and spell them right and things like that. But Claire's probably got a little bit of an intro into that, and then I'll wrap up at the end with a little bit more information about the course itself that we're running in May and how people might want to be involved and, you know, the ins and outs of all that. So I might hand you over to Claire, because we were just talking before about why are words so important to all of us, really, but particularly for dyslexic learners. Over to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you. I'll put Claire's iPad on because here's a demo with a little bit of a pre-frame. We've all been to school mostly, or we may be being homeschooled, but educated somehow. And reading is a big part of what we want our children to do, and we want for ourselves as well. So I know when I went to school, I hadn't fully comprehended until probably in my 50s. I met up with someone who was in my class way back when, and she said, Claire, we always felt sorry for you because you took 3 times longer than everyone else and all you did was draw pictures. And of course, I was in my own world and pictures were my thing. But the thing is, the key message here is each and every one of us, well, we have our ears, I think. We've mentioned this before, to learn. We can learn sounds. We have our eyes. We can see what a word looks like. And when we have experience of a word, we can kind of understand and deepen our knowledge of the meaning. And every word has those 3 aspects. It has what it sounds like, what it looks like, the spelling, and the meaning. We have said often that these, and I've got them here, the essential word list, you know, like and, you know, the, we've all seen these word lists. They have the spelling, they have a sound, but it's really tricky to understand the meaning of them. I want to talk a little bit about to demo how this can be confusing if, for example, I naturally loved learning with pictures and visual images, where another person may love learning with sounds and hearing. We're all different. And one of the children that I taught, she came in actually and immediately lay down and started crying. And she'd literally been here for 2 seconds and she said, it's not working, it's not working. Like we hadn't started yet, but she was really upset about the thought of yet another potential failure. And so I had invited her mum to give me some of her writing so that I could understand what was happening. Now, this wee girl was incredibly conscientious, and they'd been learning sounds, you know, which are really useful. We're not going to throw babies out with bathwater here. But then in the conscientious way that she was learning, she was trying to think of everything in terms of sound. And she had wanted to write a story, and it's a little bit hard to see. I'll just kind of hold it up here. And she had, she wanted to write the sentence, because I. Now, because that's hard to see, I'm going to hold this up. She had tried to write because I, such and such, in different ways. She tried because I. The sentence was, you know, we went to the zoo because I wanted to go and see the animals, you know. But just listening, she had come up with because of the way we speak is different from the way we write. And although she had the label of dyslexia and various, I said to her, you know, you're allowed to use your eyes as well. And she stared at me with tears in her eyes. And we actually looked up the dictionary. And I've got some lovely selection of picture dictionaries here, and they get to choose one. And for the first time, she saw the word because as one word in that visual format. And I was a second word, another word. And honestly, working for just, I think we worked for as long as she could. She was just little, 7 years old. And so we worked, say, 10 mornings, a few hours each morning. And by the end of her time here, this was what she wrote. And now she understood that each word was one word. It had what it looks like and spelling, and it had what it sounds like. And in a minute, I'm going to also talk about what it meant as well, just those three. Now, for her, understanding that literally was transformational. And she didn't look back. She was like, went back to school and took her dictionary and used it. The beauty of perhaps working one-to-one is you can kind of see what's going on. Now, I'm going to do a different word because this is another one that children often find tricky. And that word is the word enough. All right. Now, if I just said the word enough, how would you spell it, Kelly? And Rachel, give us a couple of renditions of how you might spell the word enough.
The amount of times I've seen it spelled E-N-U-F.
Yes.
I would go E-E. Yeah. Or E-E-E-N-U-F-F.
Yeah.
Enough.
Enough.
As you can imagine, when children are going through these words which don't have much meaning, you know, they've had enough of it quite often. Like that's, I'm not going to look at them again.
Or they've had enough.
or enough. Yeah. And goodness knows, we've all tried to teach and learn these words which don't have a picture or not an obvious picture. And let me see if I can place this in the right place. just to remind ourselves that cat on a rug here, it's an easy picture, but it's actually quite hard to make a picture of enough. So how do we do that? Well, it just happens to be my birthday today. So I made myself a square-ish cake, and here's me, and I'm figuring out the meaning of enough. But because I've heard all the way along, have you had enough cake? You know, that kind of, yes, please. But of course, on your birthday, you have more than enough. But first of all, I'm going to look up the meaning of enough in the dictionary, right? So here's my dictionary meaning. And I'm now practicing learning where enough is. Oh, there it is, prepared earlier. Adjective. As much as you need or is necessary is the meaning, the definition. There's an example here, and the example is, there were enough apples to feed everyone in our group. So let's explore this meaning of enough with our own examples, and I'll be asking you, Kelly and Rachel, to give a few examples of enough that are meaningful to you, and we'll just do it until you really get that meaning of enough, okay? Rachel, what's something enough that you could have a sentence?
Do I have enough soil for my planting? So do I have sufficient soil for my planting?
So if I were to swap out that with the definition, do you have as much as you need or as necessary? And
true.
Yeah, so you could...
Do I have as much as I need of the soil for my planting?
Yeah, nice. Does that, so all we do here is we kind of have a bit of fun with this, and quite often we're walking outside and finding things or playing games to get that meaning really certain inside. Do you have a sentence with the word enough in it, Kelly?
I've had enough to drink, thank you very much.
Very good. So as the facilitator here, I'd say, so you have had, just a minute, you have had as much as you need or is as necessary to drink, Kelly. Okay.
Exactly.
So, you can have some fun with this. So
I think also where it gets confusing is people use words in a bit of a sarcastic way. Like, as I'm getting my third helping of ice cream, people might say, are you sure you've had enough, Rachel?
No, I'm not sure.
No.
It's the same with cake. And of course, in a classroom setting, or in our little rooms with tables that we teach all these words at, or kitchen tables, we're all trying our best. And of course, you might not be able to go outside, and you've got a list to learn by tomorrow, kind of thing, for the test. So to be able to make something in clay, and here's me cutting my cake. I probably should have bought a knife. And you know how people cut cake, they sort of cut a big slice, and then they sort of put that on there, and then you can feed yourself a piece of cake, which is quite fun to do, these things. And like one piece, another piece, and then we could go on to the sarcastic thing of, do you
have
think
you had enough
cake, Claire? And no, it's my birthday, and actually I'm going to have a big piece, so we're playing with these we're playing with these quite, and I'm going to say, boring words without pictures, and we're creating a picture meaning that we can then be certain about. But because I often say to people, do you know the meaning of the, or because, or enough? And honestly, very few people know the meaning. They say we just have to write the word, or I just
And-
need to know how to spell it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or we just know where to put it because that's what makes the sentence make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't actually know the meaning of it. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Like I've been shocked doing this work. How many everyday words on that basic word list, I had no idea what it actually meant. And I've been
Yeah.
using it for 50 odd years in my writing. And like even the word right? I always knew went before a noun, like a hat, a dog, a cat. I knew the grammatical rule of how to use it.
Mm.
And that's all I knew. And I'm a reasonably literate person, right? And when I did the word model of which means one but not the only one, and I had to demonstrate it to my students, I was like, how do we do that? Okay. One pen, but not the only pen, and they were like, oh, one pen. I was like, I never, ever understood what it meant.
Yeah.
And then I think about people who are, neurodiverse or highly dyslexic, trying to navigate that basic word list of all those words without clear meanings. It's a nightmare, really. And yet we kind of brush it off. Oh, you're just a bit dyslexic. No, without those meanings, those words are empty, useless.
And in my day, they used to do the BERT reading test like they do the BERT spelling test these days, and it was more and more complicated words in a list with no sentences or anything around, and that's how they gave you your reading age. And at the age of 11, I had the reading age of a 7-year-old, but I had the IQ of a genius. So that was the disparity model that they used to base dyslexia on. But the only reason why, I mean, I could read, but I couldn't pass that BERT test because it was these random words without context and based on phonetical or memory, although I had a phenomenal memory, but it was more about phonics and as a dyslexic, it just didn't compute with me. I didn't learn to read through phonics. They taught me to read through phonics, but I didn't learn to read through phonics. I learned to read through making the meaning.
Well, I think that's a really important distinction, Kelly. So I've had clients, and I'm sure Claire has too, and probably Nikki, that where they can read flawlessly a page of text, and then I go, and so why have you come to see me? And they go, I don't understand a single word on that page. They can't tell me what they read, the content. And the whole point of reading is for the content, for the understanding, or what we say in the literacy world, the comprehension. Yeah. And I have many, it tends to show up with slightly older students, like sort of 12 to 16-year-olds plus, and then the adults as well, like that there's big chunks of meaning missing in their reading. And so they don't get, if you like, they don't grasp the true meaning of the text they've just read. I had the same issue. I was working with a PhD student recently, same thing, super bright, like super, super bright, super competent, super hardworking. But she said, I read stuff, I have to read it 10 times to get what it means. And once we worked with this word modeling methodology, which Claire's in the middle of demonstrating, she could comprehend a lot of those basic words straight away, and then her overall comprehension of the text she was reading just fell into place.
That's because, it's all an issue of cognitive space, because as a dyslexic, we're using our right brain for an exclusively left brain function when we're reading, and because your phonemic awareness area is behind your left ear, and that was all part of a paper I wrote that's actually on the Davis site, about the neurobiology behind dyslexia and that's why Davis works. But and this is for a biological dyslexic, somebody who's born dyslexic, because they're using the right side of their brain. It's a right brain dominance. So phonics just never computes with those of us who are right brain dominant, because our brain is actually using the wrong side of the brain to read, because reading is a relatively recent evolutionary thing, and our brain actually hasn't evolved to read. We haven't been reading long enough for it to actually become an evolutionary thing. But yeah, so it's when the meaning is so important, because you're taking all that time to decode what you're reading, and that takes up all the cognitive space or all the time in your brain, so you can't comprehend. So when you're taught through phonics and you're a dyslexic or you're right brain dominant, that's what your brain does. It either works on decoding or it works on comprehending, and can't put the two together because there's too much going on with the one. So when you train your brain to think in the way that it naturally thinks, the comprehension comes.
Yeah.
And I think that way that's natural is connected to the real world,
Yes.
And of course, we could go to the real world, but this is at least playing it allows the mind to start thinking with the ideas of the real world as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not to say that teaching phonics is the wrong way to go. It's not.
Not at
It's
all. No, it's really beneficial sometimes.
For typical readers, that is the best way to teach. And in school, I totally go with the structured literacy process, because I think it is important, especially in the early years. But it is also important in that it can help to identify those students or those learners who are right brain dominant and aren't picking up the phonics. It's about being sensitive to that too. Yeah.
And I think, oh, sorry, Rachel, you go.
I wonder, you say what you want to say, but I wonder if you want to bring all the pieces together in the model.
Sure. Yes.
Now we've got cake. It's making me hungry. But
I know. I'm going to make one after this. So, and just to follow up on what you said, for the dyslexic brain, once they've got these first, established the meaning and so on, then it's quite good then to teach the patterns, of the past tense endings or but they've got the main thing first, and then the other things are kind of can be taught along the way as well. So,
and contrary to popular belief, actually dyslexics love words.
Yes,
I love
absolutely,
words.
absolutely, yeah.
And
oh yeah. So,
sorry, go ahead, Claire. While you're
the therapeutic aspect of this is non-hardening animation clay, and I think I should have probably put my camera on something that didn't. It's going to be a bit bumpy, a bumpy ride. Hold on. I won't change it at this point. It's okay. So just I'm rolling. Yep, rolling clay. And as you roll it, it sort of softens and you feel a bit calm, and you can see the clients that I work with going, and of course here we're making a 3D letter. We've looked it up in the dictionary. We know now that it starts with the letter E. We're not going to get too concerned about exactly how we're claying these letters right now. But for me, I know that probably it's going to be made slightly upside down here, the camera, but there's my E coming along, and I can look at a model of an E just in case, you know, I need to be certain about that. And so now I have this lovely E that is the start of enough. Now, because it's a bit like a cooking show here, I have prepared a word earlier. So I will just put that here and let's cut that down a bit. And how lovely it is when you start to sort of understand how the letters work. Because in people's confusion, they start to get a little bit like distressed about even looking at letters or words. So
yeah, I had a
constructive. Yeah. Yes, you talk now.
I had a client last year who had issues with the letter N. He couldn't even say any word that had an N in it. So he'd go, and couldn't say the N and. And we finally got to that. His first word out of his mouth as a baby was no. I wondered if it was a really important word for him. And I said, have you had your no disrespected in life? And he was in tears and hoodie over his head, really upset and not talking. And this little finger came up from under the hoodie. I said, well, that explains why N and no so hard for you. Would you be willing to come back and we'll do some work and let go of that upset about the letter N and the word no? Another little finger came up from under the hoodie. And I said, okay. And by the end of the hour, he was saying the letter N and he was saying words with the letter N in it with no upset or no emotion. He could just say it. So before, N was like, I hate the letter N. And now he's like, he's fine with it. And he took it home, the little letter. And I said, I want you to just sit it in your room and just have it be in your space if you are peaceful with the letter N. And then his mum texted me, he's wandering around the house saying the letter N and words with N in it. But we don't know really what causes these upsets until we unpack them a little bit. And that was an example of we unpacked it and then he got some freedom with it. And now he can use that letter and say those words and he's, you know, going really well. And that's, I guess, part of the privilege of doing this work is that you get to work with people who have these hiccups, if you like, in their learning. We resolve the hiccup and they can then start to really enjoy learning. And he's an avid reader now, whereas previously he was like, no, don't read.
Sorry.
Here we go. What a beautiful model, Claire.
Well,
so beautiful.
It's just delightful. And of course, we've got the wee person who's me, who's happy to be having cake later on today. With cake in my hand and more ready to eat and a whole other bit of cake to share. And but you know, that's a model of it and the definition. So now when we do this, we're actually switching between those two hemispheres, those two places that you were talking about, Kelly. I've used my creative right brain to do the meaning. And now I'm going to switch to read, and I've never done this before, so here we are, first on camera, but you tell me when you think I've got my Davis tools. Okay, just a minute.
No.
It was exactly then. And suddenly I'm calmer, I'm slower, not as nervous being on live stream. And in that state of a calm brain, I'm now going to read the meaning of enough. As much as you need or is necessary. And reading it like that from a calm space how much better is that?
Mm.
So I can say to the meaning, you are enough, meaning, and even with this calm brain, I can remember as much as you need or is necessary. And then I say to the word, you say enough. And I'll point, touch and point, looking at each and every letter, because if I do that, then my dyslexic brain will remember all the individual letters in a word.
Mm.
E, N, O, U, G, H. Enough. And now I'm looking at it in its entirety. And because I've got a lovely visual imagination, I'm actually going to close my eyes and visualize in my mind the word enough. Yeah.
Mm.
H, and I can peek if I need to. H, G, U, O, N, E. I always finish forwards, and I'm seeing the clay E. E. I'm seeing the clay N. E, N, O, U, G, H. Wow. And I've now used all parts of me, my visual imagination, listening to it, playing with the meaning. And those are just simply the three parts of the word.
And touching it.
Mm.
Absolutely. And quite often, a lot of the clients I've worked with, performing artists, and they just place their hand on it and wait for the shape of the letter to embody into their hand.
Mm.
And that's how they learn. So you can now understand why this little girl was able to produce this at the end of a few sessions,
Mm.
because she was calm with her tools. She knew there was one word. She could use her visual imagination as well as her auditory. And she could also be herself and know that she gave herself permission to develop the way of learning the way she learned. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Which is all our clients are different. So yeah. What do you think of that? Just give me a wee bit of feedback, and then I've got one more thing to say and show.
Well, I always feel that it's nothing short of miraculous. Having experienced it myself, but also having used it with a whole lot of other learners. Rachel and I work quite well together in tandem. I'll do the follow-up work for the programs that
Okay,
does,
great.
or I'll come to Rachel and I'll say, oh, I've got this learner who is doing this, and she'll go, oh, have you tried that? And I'll go, oh, I'll go back and try it, and invariably it works. And yes, it's quite remarkable how it just works. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And you've got to yeah, exactly. You have to experience, I think you have to experience it or know somebody who has experienced the miraculous nature of it, to fully understand and appreciate how useful and how wonderful actually a gift it is.
What I love about what you've created today, Claire, and I say that as someone who's been facilitating for a little while now, is that all of our perceptions are involved with learning. So you start out talking about the sound of words and how for right brain dyslexic learners that can be challenging because they have other perceptions that are perhaps their preference or easier to access. And then you brought in the pictorial side of it. but then there's the kinesthetic, or the touching and working with the clay. And I would also add in, there's almost an energetic thing in there, in that the person, whoever's made the clay model, has been putting their energy and their creativity into that model. So it goes from being something like an impersonal word, impersonal unknown word, to it's embodied. It's like it's part of me now. That word enough is part of me. Or, you know, for the young lad I was talking about before, you know, the word no, instead of this being an enemy, was now a part of him. And then he could use it as he needed to, with freedom and power.
On his own terms.
On his own terms, exactly.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite seen all that so clearly as what you articulated this morning.
When I did the course, my facilitator, Angie, she would ask me, so whose word is this? And I was like, why is it yours? Because I created it.
Yeah.
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 I've had overnight guests for the last couple of nights, staying, very good friends, and as they were leaving today, she said, you know what you do, it's a solid tool to support people to learn mind, body, and soul. And I felt like that's what is summing it up. And just in the technical part of it, and we can post this under for people to look at, because I got this from someone, maybe Jane Severinson, I'm not sure, but what it has is the essential word list and the percentage of times it appears, you know, frequency of usage.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so it's like, we do this too. We sort of start with the ones like and the, because if you do those, you get bang for your buck, you know.
Yeah.
You might get 10 thus on one page. Yeah. But I sometimes use this little book by an Australian. It's quite cool. It's probably a book about a whole lot of adventures that children get up to, you know. And so I was looking at the text, you know, and how children could start reading it and easily get confused and triggered and like, and we say as Davis facilitators that actually between 50 to say 75 or even 80% sometimes of words on any page are these essential word lists words, you know. And just to do a little visual of it, that's one page of that book, and I've highlighted in blue the number of times the, where, when, you know, have been used.
I guess that's why they're called the essential words list.
Yeah.
Yes. Essential. And for someone who's looking for meaning and not getting it, and they're skipping those words quite often, or missing them, or not wanting to look at them because there's that word again. There's a lot of them on one page. So when we talk about, is it worth playing, you know, these words and taking the time to clay 200 words, you sort of go figure, out of the millions of words in the English language, you know, these words, it's probably good to, for everybody, not just the dyslexics, to learn. Then they learn all of the word.
Yeah.
And make it part of them. Yeah. So that's my final little visual of the Claire demo on her birthday.
Happy birthday, Claire.
Yeah. So great that you could be here on your birthday. I must just, if it's okay, we've got a few minutes left. It's just kind of connect what we've been talking about this morning with the course that Claire and I are going to be running in May. So, our day jobs, if you like, is we work with people one-on-one in intensive dyslexia programs and ADHD and maths. And Claire's also in training to run autism programs, which is beautiful work as well. But we're offering this course, what Kelly said right at the beginning, the why Tyrannosaurus, but not if. Dyslexia Support Course, and it's been designed for parents, but also others who support learners, generally in that sort of age range, probably 8 up to 20, who might have skated through with getting through the sort of reading years, but are now really struggling with their reading, and often it's the comprehension that we talked about before. And they're now in academic situation like school, where they have to produce something from their reading, like they might have to write, or they might have to feed back what they understand. And that's when this disconnect between being able to produce the sounds of reading and actually produce the intended result, which is to understand what you're reading and do something with it, shows up. And I call it the second place that readers drop off the reading bandwagon, if you like. Or another way we say in education, they disengage from reading and learning, right? It's that second wave into the tweens and into the teens. And so this course has been designed to kind of help parents, but also we think grandparents could really get value from being in the course if they're supporting a neurodiverse learner. Also teachers, tutors, teacher aides, clerical, anyone who is working with young people who are bright but have difficulties, if you like, or they have adopted through their negative experiences an attitude like school sucks, or I'm dumb, or I don't want to go back to school on Monday. Like all of those sort of things come through in the conversations, but often they can't say why. It's just, it's really, really hard. And I think we've demonstrated really well today, particularly Claire, why it is hard for learners when they've got 60 to 80% of what's on the page not easy to understand or grasp, right? So in the course, we sort of unpack a little bit about the why, and then we get into tools to help let's just call them the support person, because it could be any number of people. The supporting person support their learner or their tauira or their child, right? So we use some tools that help us get into that calm state, like Claire beautifully demonstrated before. So there are a couple of, we call them self-regulation or self-management tools that they put you in that calm space so you can learn better and not get as upset when you're reading. Then we work with these tools like claying basic words and then more complex words, because as we go up through those years in school, the secondary school years, the words get more and more complex and less picture-based. So we think about the word germinate, right? Germinate's our favourite word, and that does not have a natural picture that goes with it, and it's quite a complex meaning. And so we demonstrate how to create those subject-specific words, you like, all those vocab words that are on all those lists that teens have to learn for their tests. And then we look at some powerful methods of reading that are picture-based. And again, I've had so many adults go, I had no idea how much I was missing in my books or in my reading until I did this, right? And it's really cool. It brings the picture thinking to the fore when you're reading, so that you, enjoy it and get more value from it, but can remember what you read yesterday, today. Because that's the other thing I've found in all my work with learners, all my career, is you'll teach something on a Monday and by Wednesday, it seems like they never learnt it. And I've always been curious as to why. And I think it's because the pictures weren't created on the Monday, and so they weren't retained on the Wednesday or the Friday. And I say that about myself, the amount of swatting I used to do for an exam, and then it would be gone the next day, and really no value to me except I might have passed the test, you know. So we look at all of those aspects, and it's interactive, like you've seen today. It's live. People get to work with their own clay. There's a little guidebook, but it's really a facilitated process.
Which is provided. So
we provide the clay and we provide the workbooks. And so at the end of the 6 sessions, you've got a really good set of tools, like a kete, we say in this country, of tools that you can go and work on yourself, but more importantly, work with your child or learner. And so many people have said the difference is made in their family to be able to use some of those tools to stay calm and focused in their family environment, and that everyone's enjoying reading and understanding the meaning of words around them so much more. And I think it has a bit of a network effect, not just on the support person and their one learner, but across a family, because people come over and go, what are you doing with Clay? You know, they want to get involved. And it's really cool like that. So that's what we're offering, and it's in May. We start in New Zealand time, we start on the 7th of May, but we've put it at a time that hopefully will serve a broad range of locations. So from Australia, it would be, we're doing it 1 to 3 p.m. in New Zealand, and it's the same time in Fiji. In Australia, that would be 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the East Coast, but even the West Coasters could chime in at 9 a.m. So Perth and Adelaide through there, but then going east, get my directions right here, it could serve people in any of the Pacific nations, Hawaii, and then the west and central zones, I guess time zones of the Americas, so North America, Central and South America, could just sneak in at the end of the day. So in Californian time, for example, it's from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, just on a Monday. So we're going to run it Tuesday, Thursday for us here, and Monday, Wednesday for Hawaii and the Americas. So big possibilities of people from across this, what we call the Pacific region, to participate and get like a real hands-on experience of the Davis Toolkit, and be able to give that value onto their child or their learner, or their learners. It might be a teacher with a class of neurodiverse kids. And
they're a fantastic set of tools to have tucked in your belt, and you'll be surprised how often you can actually bring them out and use them as a teacher, as a classroom teacher. It's a great universal design for learning as well. It's not, I think it's a great companion to structured literacy. It doesn't necessarily replace structured literacy, but working together, I think if you do them both well, you're more than likely going to cover your spectrum of learners that are in a classroom. So thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much, Rachel. And whoever's watching this as a recording, please head over to I'll put in the contact details, but if you go to www.thearcheducation.co.nz, look under events, you will see that the course is listed there, and all the information you need to go to wherever you need to go to register is all on there. So I highly recommend it. And for the price of it, you get a whole lot of value that will stay with you for a lifetime. So thank you very much, ladies. I really appreciate
so
your
much
time.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. Thanks, Nikki, for being here. I hope you've got some value being here today.
Thanks,
Absolutely,
Nikki.
Rachel. Absolutely, you ladies. I really learnt lots, actually. So, and I've got my office tidied as well. So, congratulations, multitaskers we are. So, brilliant, awesome. I'm definitely going to pass that course on. I have a client who's actually slightly autistic, whose mum I was having a conversation with the other day. And she just wants some skills to be able to help her child, because I don't think they're in the position to actually do the whole dyslexia course. But so I'm definitely going to pass it on, and I'm hoping you'll get another person anyway through that. So fingers crossed. I'll keep on. All right.
Thanks.
See, lovely to talk to you, ladies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Ellie.
Bye.
Okay.